The pick is in.
The Ottawa Senators have made their first selection in the 2025 NHL Draft. I'm Rachel Donner, joined now by Ross Levitan of Locked On Senators, and the Ottawa Senators have selected defenseman Logan Hensler with the 23rd overall pick. First off, they traded down to 23. Was that a surprise to you?
Rachel, that's actually something that we were advocating for on Locked On Senators. Look, the Sens' next pick isn't until the last one of the third round. They've got back-to-back then, the first pick of the fourth round, but that's a long time to wait for a team that hasn't had a first rounder in two of the last three drafts and has traded away a number of picks along the way. So we thought it would be prudent for them to add more picks, draft capital, and they get the player that I think a lot of fans would have ranked as best available at 21. So Logan Hensler's coming to town, right shot defenseman, and I think that trading down just makes it a little bit sweeter when you get the extra pick in there.
Yeah, Logan Hensler is really interesting because I don't think he's necessarily the most flashy or exciting player, but he's such a solid defenseman and does a good job everywhere on the ice. So, how does that add to what the Senators already have in their prospect pool?
Yeah, it actually complements it really well. The Senators last year took a bit more of a swing with Carter Yakimchuk at 7th overall, also a right shot defenseman. And over the past number of drafts, it felt like they'd really keyed in on the left side. Even at the NHL level, two of their three defensemen right now that played all 6 games in the playoffs are drafted in 2020, just 5 years ago. So they already have this young, stable blue line, including Jake Sanderson, one of the best up-and-coming defensemen in the National Hockey League. So it's how are you going to complement them on the right side? And now you see a situation where, hey, in 4 or 5 years, if you have Logan Hensler, the more reliable, great skating, physical defenseman on one pair, and then Carter Yakimchuk, a bit more of a riverboat gambler, has got the big shot, also physical, kind of a theme with Senators draft picks every year. But I think this is a stable pick. Again, it's not maybe the most exciting one in terms of dynamic skill, but you got to also remember he was one of the youngest players in college hockey last year and improved throughout the season. So I think next year at Wisconsin, it's going to be a really good opportunity for him to build out the offensive side of the game. But for a team in Ottawa that is trying to be a lot more responsible defensively, he fits in what they're trying to do in the future to be more successful.
Yeah, he's got really excellent mobility and he does really well on the breakout. And I do think there is always an advantage when you draft a guy who has some of that college experience before the draft. So you get a sense of what he'll look like against bigger guys and more polished guys around him. And he does have a really good, solid game. Again, it's just not flashy, but if that's not what the Sens need, then I think you're in really good shape here.
Yeah, I think the perfect kind of player comparable, and maybe not perfect because you hope in a first round pick you're always going to get a little bit more offense, but Sens fans were really happy to see the job that 35-year-old Nick Jensen did. So obviously you're hoping that there's more upside, but in terms of stabilizing the pair that he was on, he allowed his partner, Thomas Chabot, to have best season that he's had in a long time. So you're thinking, you can close your eyes here and in about 5 or 6 years see a world where Logan Hensler is playing in the top 4 and playing positive minutes. And I think that to me is really going to be a key aspect to this, is how reliable he's going to be. Because look, you've got a lot of weapons on the back end. Sanderson showing that he has a lot more untapped offense, and he showed it in the second half of the season. So I would like to see more offense. There's no question about that. When you draft a guy in the first round and he comes in with 2 goals, 10 assists on a season, yeah, the numbers aren't flashing off the page, but I do think that he is what the Senators need. And it's also a breath of fresh air because you could argue Carter Yakimchuk was definitely in the range that they were drafting last year, but in a number of drafts recently, the Senators have just gone way off the board. They try to overthink it. They try to see a guy who, there's this tiny little potential that he could end up being so-and-so. Like Tom Wilson, for example, they thought they were getting that in 2021 when they drafted Tyler Boucher. Unfortunately, injuries have played a toll there, but it was always a reach. And they've done in the second round too. But now it's like, okay, one, we're taking the best player available. Bob McKenzie had him at 15th on his final rankings. And in another situation, you're taking a guy that has that high floor so that there's a very high probability that at worst, he's still going to help out your NHL team.
Yeah, that high floor is extremely important. For more on Logan Hensler, here's Locked On NHL Prospects.
Has Logan Hensler developed into one of the more undervalued assets at the 2025 NHL Draft? I'm Sebastian High from Locked On NHL Prospects, ready to give you a breakdown of his game. He's a 6'2.5", 196-pound right shot defenseman who skates at the absolute wind. He's one of the best movers among the blue liners in this year's draft class, and playing in college hockey this season, he was really tested on the physical level and really succeeded on that front. Though he did struggle overall in his decision-making earlier on the campaign, the back half of the season ended way stronger than he started the year. The offense took a step. He was dangling through opposition defenses and really trying to make things happen with the puck on his stick. He has some elements of Mike Matheson and even Noah Hannafin in his game and could develop into a top 4 defenseman in the NHL, but is likely going to need 3 to 4 years before cracking the league. For more on Hensler and all things NHL Draft, follow and subscribe to Locked On NHL Prospects on YouTube or wherever you find your podcasts.
And for continued coverage of Logan Hensler and all of the Senators picks in this year's draft, check out Locked On Senators on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.